podcast number 5. We are the Bookends. My name is Rob.
My name is Rose.
Welcome, everybody. So as the format goes, we can have a general discussion about a book-related topic, and then we're going to talk about our new book, which was revealed in the last pod. If you don't know, go back and listen to it. But we will tell you later. Sorry, that's quite passive-aggressive. Sorry.
But accurate.
Yeah, but we will tell you about it after our general discussion. First off, Rose, how are you?
I'm good. I'm doing well. It's the end of the week, and it's a Friday night, so the best day of the week for me.
It's a caffeine-fueled podcast, as ever.
It is, as you can probably tell as this goes on.
Absolutely. So
how are you, anyway?
Yes, I'm good. It's Friday. And as hard as the week can be, it makes it that much more bittersweet when it's the weekend. It feels that much better,
100%.
Been reading, obviously.
Always helpful.
Yeah, always good to do. So, our general discussion, Rose, as chosen by you.
Yes. So I think previously I actually think it may have been our first ever pod that we did. We were talking about what got us into reading, I think, is why we enjoy reading. And I thought it would be helpful this week, perhaps, if we discussed the types of books that we like reading and why, and perhaps books that we, perhaps wouldn't go for and why.
Yes.
Just have a little discussion about that.
Very subjective.
Yeah, but that's why it's quite nice to do. So I guess it's my topic. So I'll put you on the spot, Rob, and ask you, what sort of books do you like?
I can tell you what books I don't like. Would that be easier or not?
If that's it for you, yeah, if that's easy.
I would always avoid romance.
Okay.
Unless one of my best ever books I ever read was Birdsong by Sebastian Faulks, and that has a massive romance element to it, but it's at the backdrop of like a war scenario, so that felt good. If it was just a rom-com about when Harry met Sally, like a rom-com film, I'd be put off by it. But
can I ask why that is? Why would you be put off by romance?
I just feel like it's all kind of predictable, and I feel like there's bigger things in the world than to go on about someone that you love and doesn't love you back, or the trials and tribulations of being with someone. And there's bigger fish to fry in the world. But
no, I would agree, and I would, not that you asked me, but I'm telling you anyway, I would agree with the predictability element of it. And also I feel like it's a bit of a cop out for a book because there's so many of them. Like, I think it's quite easy to write a predictable romance novel.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Saying that, I've not done one.
No.
Not saying that.
Well, on this podcast, it will span many years. So I feel like we'll be pleasantly surprised. We'll pick one day and we're like, you know what, that was good.
Yeah. I think if it's a romance amongst something else, like you say, if it's a war story or if it's woven into something a bit more interesting, like a thriller, then fine, but not just a romance on its own.
So, speaking of thrillers, I'd always go for a suspense-filled thriller.
Okay.
Not necessarily a horror, because that's something that I don't really, again, the payoff like aliens or a big goblin doesn't do it for me.
Right.
So it's definitely a thriller of some sort, not like a kidnapping thing, but I don't mind a good old detective one. No, you're not a fan. A good old murder mystery. Thriller. I love a fantasy book, but it's been done so many times and they're always big books. You really have to get your teeth into it. But I do love, like a Lord of the Rings type book where you get lost in that sort of world. And I think I like books that subvert your expectations. Here we go. A-level English coming back. Like you think it's going one way and it goes another. There's a twist in it. Twists, turns. Sometimes the bad guy wins. All that kind of stuff. But any book that's going to engage me and drag me into this world, and I'm going to be kind of like no idea what's going to happen. Where again, like a rom-com, you kind of know what's going to happen in the end. They're either going to get together or they ain't, or they're all going to die. So fantasy, thriller. What other kind of book? Autobiographies? Nah, not partic.
What
other
has
kind
to depend who it is, doesn't it? I guess.
Yeah. So thrillers and fantasy, I'd say.
Your main. Okay.
Possibly. I know I said about no, I don't like the aliens, but maybe a sci-fi, maybe, but not. Yeah, maybe a sci-fi. We'll see. Okay, your turn.
Okay. I think I would agree with you for things that I don't like reading. Romance would probably be one. However, and I know we touched on this in a previous pod, I think if I'm sort of on holiday or whatever, they're quite easy read, switch off books, even if they're predictable. I suppose because of that, they're quite easy to pick up on. You look like you've got something to say.
Reading 50 Shades of Grey again, Rose?
No, I didn't actually rate those books that much. I have read them, but no. Yeah, romance for me, I prefer it if it's a romance like a classic, like Wuthering Heights. I absolutely love that because the romance is a bit heavier and it's just there's so much more to it, and the language in that helps.
I would love to read Wuthering Heights. I would like to go for that one. If it's a classic, then yeah, I would.
It is so beautiful, and I've not read it for so long that I would happily do that again because there'll probably be a lot of it that I can't quite remember, but what I do remember I really loved. So romance would be a no-go for me. I don't really like reading non-fiction, so if it's textbook like, I feel it's I don't really enjoy it. It's got to be a fiction for me.
Yeah.
Like you, I love fantasy, and it feels weird to say it, but it has to be I don't know if saying a realistic fantasy is the right word, but I don't like a child. If it's too childlike, I can't really get into it.
We mentioned off the pod that we don't like superhero stuff, do we? You got to try and put yourself in the protagonist's shoes. Could you be that person, a normal person in another world, rather than a person with superpowers and stuff? Because you can't ever identify with that.
No. But I think if it's with a superpower thing, for me, the thing that I do like, although I don't know if it would be superpower, I love time travel. So I like that sort of stuff in books.
Me too.
That's fine. And from a sci-fi perspective, I enjoy that, or dystopian novels, like things that are set in the future, or things I like. That's the sort of stuff that I'd enjoy reading from a fantasy point of view. Excellent. But nothing if it gets childlike a bit. And again, like we've touched on before, that's the issue I had with Stephen King's fairy tale, is it was very childlike when we got into it.
Yeah. You're not a fan of like murder mystery detective books, are you?
Not massively. And I think the thing is, I can't read a lot of them. I think I don't mind the odd one, but similar to romance, I often find that they can be a bit predictable. They have like a very similar sort of theme in that, like sort of plot to them, that I just think it starts with a murder and then they get into it and then they realize there's a personal connection, and then it's so I get bored of them quite easily. I don't find that they engage me as much. But a thriller, I would like. I don't mind a crime thriller, and fantasy are probably my go-tos.
I'm not a fan of like books that are like, yes, they tell a story, but there's like a comedy element to them. I don't really like that so much. I read one book about it was really popular at one point years ago. It was about an old man who like escapes from the care home through the window. Have you ever heard it?
Oh yeah, the man who was like the 100-year man who got up. And, I
just thought like it felt like that book was so made just for TV, like, and it was just silly.
It was more like a sketch show, wasn't it?
Books like that where you can tell they've got a thought about, let's put this on TV or whatever. Didn't do it for me. Like, there's a comedy element. I like a bit, like, not realism, but I like a bit gritty and dark, you know.
Yeah, but dark humor I'm more susceptible to.
Yeah, at least an escape, isn't it, for us? Books are such an escape, and going to a different world and stuff. Like, we want to go to a different world and escape, but there's got to be a bit of reality in there too. There can't be someone that can like fly and stuff, you know. They've got to be a real person in a fantasy kind of backdrop, I feel. And that's where you think, God, if I was in that situation, what would I be thinking and experiencing?
Yeah. And on that, I don't like books that are too realistic, because I think if it's someone that's having there's some trauma element, or it's a relationship breakdown or stress with work, I'm like, I've got that in real life. Like, I don't want to be reading that. I want an escape from reality. So
I know you recommended, was it The Boy in Striped Pajamas? Not the reason I said no to that was because there's the political backdrop and stuff. I don't want to be hearing about an author's views on like the politics and the war and stuff.
Oh, but it's not. See, that's the thing. That's a really clever, for me, that's a really clever book that's from the perspective of a child, and it's about a friendship between a Jewish boy and a German boy, like not knowing what they're completely naive to what's actually happening and why he's actually in pajamas, and it's just such a it's sad, but it's a really clever.
Maybe you can talk about that on your favorite books pod one day.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. That probably would be one.
I guess we sound very fussy and very like maybe you might be offending a lot of people. I don't know.
Do you know what? I think the more as we've been talking about, I've been thinking that I think we're actually very alike in that I don't know what it says about us, or our lives, but we just want to escape. And I think that's the beauty of reading, isn't it? That it enables you to do that without actually going anywhere.
And maybe this pod will broaden our horizons if people suggest certain books and we love them. Again, subverting our own expectations. We might end up loving a rom-com or an alien one.
Yeah. There is actually, in fact, remind me of this, because when you asked me about my favourite books, there is actually a romance book a relationship-like book that I would actually put up there as being one of the best I've read. So
So now to talk about our second book of the Bookends podcast journey. What's it called, Rose?
It is Before the Coffee Gets Cold by
Toshikazu Kawaguchi. Now,
who is a Japanese author, just for the difficulty in pronunciation, then that's why.
Yeah. Cast your mind back, Rose, and I've made some bullet points. Before we knew what this book was about, what was your initial thoughts based on the title and the book cover?
To be fair, I've seen a lot of it on social media when I was trying to find us a book that we would both enjoy, which has been very difficult. So I kind of had a slight... I knew that the book involved some sort of time travel, which is why I picked it, because I thought that you would enjoy it, and I knew that we both had that sort of thing in common. Yeah. But that's pretty much all I knew. And obviously that it was a Japanese book because I'd seen the title and people commented on it. But so I didn't really know what to expect. And I ordered it and it arrived and it was actually smaller than I thought as well. I didn't know if it...
Is it a new book? Quite a new one? Do we know?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. I just know it's quite popular at the minute, but I'm not actually sure when it was written, but I can check because I have the book here.
My initial expectation, thank you for asking, was that Before the Coffee Gets Cold, to me, sounds like people are in a hurry and they've got to do something or say something. There's a time limit element, there's a panic, there's a rush on. But then it mentions coffee, and we love coffee. So just the word makes me excited.
Okay, so I guess on that, so we've both read the first chapter so far, haven't we? We're not that far in.
Yeah.
What are your initial thoughts on it based on what you thought it was going to be about and what it is actually about?
Started off like it was like a love drama, a man and a woman. Then it explained all the rules of this time travel thing. And basically, there's so many rules that really the point of going back sounds pretty pointless.
Should we explain the concept of it before that help?
Okay. We'll do it together then. So in this coffee shop, there is a seat that you sit on where you can go back in time to a moment that you want. However, you can see people in the past that you've met or family members, but only if they've been in the coffee shop with you before. So that narrows it down quite a lot. You can only sit on this one special seat where it's always used by someone else sitting on it. So you got to wait till she goes to the bathroom before you sit on it. You've only got the time from when the coffee's poured in your cup to when it starts getting cold before you have to go back in time. If you go over the time when the coffee gets cold, you stay there forever.
I think, it's some urban legend, isn't it, that this cafe has, that it allows you to go back in time. And you can go back, I don't know if there's a time limit on how far you can go back, but there's a list of rules that if you do choose to go back in time that you have to meet. And one of them is, you've got to go back and be back in the time it takes your coffee to get cold. And if you're not, I think you then... It's sort of almost you then become a ghost, because this is what that woman is, isn't it? So the woman that sits in the chair all the time is a ghost, apparently, and she gets up once a day to use the toilet, and during that time, that's when you take your chance, sit in the seat, go back. But there's a list of rules, and one of them is it doesn't matter what you go back for or what you do, it isn't going to change the present.
Yeah. So the analogy they give at one point is if, say, you went back and you shot the person in the past, whatever happens, if they're alive in the future, the present, they'll be alive anyway. So they'll get the best medical treatment. They'll survive whatever happens. So you cannot change what happened at all.
Yeah, but you can't change the present, but you can impact the future, which is kind of what. And then, we start with our main character, Fumiko. I don't know if I'm pronouncing these names right. I apologise if I'm not.
Yeah.
But the book starts with her having a discussion with her boyfriend, who's essentially breaking up with her because he's going to America to take on some job opportunity. He then leaves, and then it's not until after he's left that she then realizes all these things that she should have said, and that she wants to go back in time then to tell him everything that she should have said and stop him from going, even though she's told by the waitress it won't change the present. So he would have always gone to America regardless.
Yeah.
So then she goes back in time, doesn't she, to, I think his name is Goro, if I remember rightly. So she goes back in time to meet with Goro to have this conversation again. What did you think of it when she went back in time?
Well, to me, Rose, let's give a scenario, right? I've just thought about this as you've been talking. So I'm giving you a winning lottery ticket, right? Okay,
Thanks.
you got it.
Yeah.
You go to the lottery people and you cash it in. They say to you, okay, you've won a lottery. You can only have it in 1p, 1 penny, American 1 cent, whatever.
Yeah.
Chinese 1 yen, whatever. You can only have it in 1p, and you can only have £1 of it every day. That's what the premise is like. It's like, yes, it sounds amazing, but realistically, you can't do much with this premise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of redundant. All you go in for is to see that person again for 5 brief minutes.
If that, because I was thinking this, it doesn't take long for a coffee to get cold.
Not if you got a nice latte like I have.
Well, but not only that, that's another one of the rules is you can't move from the chair either. So you can't get up and walk around or stand up you can't leave that chair. So you can go back for about 5 minutes and sit in one place.
Yeah.
So I didn't really understand what the function of her going back was for or what it would achieve.
No, and having read the first, so every chapter it seems like it's like a mini story, isn't it? And I'm sure
I think that's
thing at the end. But after reading the first mini story, not much was really achieved, was it?
Nothing was, and I think that's why I felt quite frustrated, because even when she goes back, Goro's saying, but this is the other thing, and I do get confused with time travel and how it messes with me. I enjoy and get frustrated with at the same time.
Bloody love time travel, by the way.
I know, but this is why I love it, because it messes with me. But so she goes back and has the same conversation with Goro, but she doesn't say anything different. She says it in her head, but she doesn't actually say it out loud, which was really frustrating. I think, why wouldn't you? But then she doesn't say anything different from what I remember. But I think as she's sort of fading and going back to the present, he's saying like, "I'll wait for me for 3 years" or something. I think, but he didn't say that, so why would he say it now?
I feel like in this book, my prediction is that the main thing is going to be themes at the end of it, like what it means about like loss and stuff, love and loss. Yeah. Rather than character development and stuff actually happening, more about like if you could go back and change things, would you want to, and all these things, which is interesting to a point.
Well, it's the first page of the book, isn't it? That before you go into the actual first chapter, it says, if you could go back, who would you want to meet? But I feel that's a bit misleading, because in this book, you can, based on these rules, you can only go back if they've been in that cafe with you, which would actually limit the majority of my people in my life.
Would you want to go back and meet anyone that didn't like coffee? So you wouldn't.
No, but they'd have to have been. You'd have to gone to that specific cafe together. And what if you didn't? That's quite a narrowed down selection, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, Rose. I'm not loving it, but it's early days. We can't judge a book by its cover.
By its first chapter. Or by its cover. No.
It's nice and light compared to The Secret History, which I appreciate. It's lighter.
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite a quick read. But I guess
turn quickly, don't they, on this one?
Yeah, figuratively for you, on your Kindle. But yeah, I guess in comparison with The Secret History, it's quite a contrast. And interesting that you said it's very light, considering we kept saying Secret History was quite a heavy book.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether this would feel as light if we hadn't just read Secret History. Yeah. I don't know if there's quite the contrast because of that.
It's no Roger Red Hat, is it? You know,
it's not. But at the same time, I would say it is very basic. It isn't very. I think it's very easy read, isn't it? It's not a.
Yeah. I just kind of wish at the moment that we don't know what the overall arching theme's going to be and all that, but I just wish they made the premise a bit more exciting. Like the time travel thing, yeah, that's cool, because there's so many problems with it. It's not that enticing to me.
Yeah, it feels like it's not very, and I know this word thing, but it's not a very realistic thing to if it existed, and it would be really encouraging. But I think if that was me and someone said, well, you can go back in time, amazing. But then they told me all the rules. What's the point?
Yeah, like if there was more of if you can go back in time, yes, you can change things, everything changed. However, you will die in 1 year's time. Something more, more groundbreaking, rather than you can't change anything. It don't really matter if you do it or not, but for a bit of peace of mind, you can see your loved one again. Or maybe they maybe they do something and they can change the past, and it does change.
I hope so, because I think that's something that's my biggest, why I enjoy time travel so much, is that whole one decision can change everything. or one, the slightest
Well,
difference in
Rose,
something.
in the real time travel principles, as per the best TV show in the world, Lost, what happened has happened, and you can't change. If it happened, what's the phrase that Locke says? Like, you can't change the past. What's done is done. If it happened, it happened. So,
Yeah.
But other premises have different opinions, don't they?
Yeah, but I think if you went back in time, you must have the ability then to change the future. Otherwise, what would you gain from going back if you're not gonna? I don't know, but I think that's what this book is going to be about. What do you gain by going back, and is it worthwhile? And would we? I think they're the sort of conversations we're perhaps having.
Yeah, I don't dislike it. I just it hasn't gripped me much yet.
No, it's an interesting concept, which I'm hoping it will pick up and explain a bit more.
Yeah,
but I don't feel the first chapter is worthy enough of going back in time. I don't really know what she's gained from it.
No, not a lot. But I mean, I like all the descriptions about coffee and stuff. It's nice.
The coffee element's nice.
Yeah, I like that.
Some of the other descriptions I think are unnecessary. There's a lot about what people are wearing, which I'm not quite sure what the bearing of that has on it.
A lot of books do that, don't they? I guess they just try and set the scene.
Yeah.
For me, it's hard, which shows my ignorance. It's like the different Japanese names. It's hard to register. Like if it was Kelly and Monica and Ross, I'd understand. But like Goro, Kazuya, it's difficult for me. But that's just because I'm an uncultured swine, I think.
No, I'm with you on that. I've had to go back and forth a few times to remember who's who and what their role was. It is quite confusing, but it's good. I think at the minute I'm being a bit uncultured swine, but I'm being a bit ignorant with it, and I'm also I think unconsciously comparing it to Secret History as I'm reading it.
Yeah,
which I shouldn't do because they are
we're still on a bit of a. Oh, would it be a high or a hangover from that book? A bit of a, like you just need, like you've done like you like to run, don't you, Rose? You do a big run. You need to sit down and just your muscles are tense. You need to just relax from it. And I'm still thinking about that book a bit,
processing it. But you know what? I did think this earlier on why this is really helpful, because usually when I read a book, I haven't got anybody to then discuss it with or process it with.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I'd have felt after the Secret History, because I felt very frustrated. So it's quite nice it's quite cathartic to air my thoughts on it. So we'll see what this one does.
And we need to remember this, like not to go. So if we'd have gone for another kind of murder mystery book, we'd be burnt out. So it's good that we've changed it up a bit.
I think it's good to have a mix, and it's good to have books that we don't enjoy to then know and learn what we do enjoy, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all very exciting. But what about predictions then, Rose? What do you think? It's hard to say, isn't it? What do you think could happen?
It's tricky, but I guess based on the first one, and I imagine because the next chapter is something different, but I think obviously you're going to have the same staff in the shop, so I guess it's going to be the same concept, but I imagine it's just going to be perhaps different customers wanting to go back in time for different
scenarios. I wonder if they're all going to be linked in some way, or
I don't know.
I'd hope that they can try and change it or something, but
change the rules, or I don't know.
Yeah, I can't see that kind of thing happening though. I don't know. But like, it's just gonna be quite depressing the more things we learn, because no one's got. It's not gonna be good story, is it, for everyone? Like, it's all going pretty bad for all of them.
Possibly. And now I'm wondering, the ghost that's in the chair. So she obviously failed to come back at the right time. I wonder whether that's going to get addressed as to why she went back in time in the first place. Maybe. I don't know. But she seems quite pivotal at the minute, that she's the one that needs to move. Like, what's the point of that? That could just be an empty chair that you take if you. Why does she need to be there? And if it doesn't have any bearing, but
next few weeks we're going to change up a little bit for some episodes because I'm going away. So we're going to do some like where Rose is going to tell us her favourite book and why, and I'll ask questions, and then she'll flip it on me and we'll ask me. We'll just talk about a love for certain books and why we like them, and hopefully get you guys to share the passion, and then you guys can read as well our favourite books. What else is in the pipeline, Rose?
Well, I think just from an engagement point of view, I guess it'd be really helpful, be nice if people could let us know what they thought of perhaps the Secret History or even our current book, because that'll be good, without giving spoilers, but whether we're having the same thoughts of others would just be nice to hear.
Absolutely.
And if they've got any suggestions on topics that we can discuss that book or reading related, I suppose, or not, but I
Mm.
guess in line with our podcast, if anyone's got any
Yes.
ideas, that would be helpful.
And also any book recommendations are always welcome as well.
Yes,
We've got a plethora
especially
of books.
based on our preferences that we've quite clearly said now. So.
or not.
You watch people just give us romances now.
Oh God, can you imagine if there's like a book version of like Notting Hill or what's the other one?
Oh,
Four
my
Weddings and a
God.
Funeral.
Love Actually. No,
Oh,
I'm not reading
imagine.
it and putting it out there. I'm not doing it.
But yeah, look out on our
No.
socials. We're gonna put a bit more stuff on social media lately, aren't we, Rosie? Rose,
Yeah.
sorry.
We won't if you call me Rosie.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah, a few more things.
No, lots of exciting stuff to come up. So yeah, please keep tuned. Tuned. Stay tuned.
Keep staying in the tune.
Tuned.
Yeah, and then I mean, are we ever going to see Rosie's poetry corner or what?
I'm working on it. Maybe for the next one.
Okay. Oh, is that a promise?
It's a firm possibility.
Okay, I'll take that any day. Okay, well, it's been lovely. Rose, anything? Any last thoughts?
No, I think let's just get reading and see where this one takes us. I imagine. Do you think we could perhaps do this by our next pod?
Next pod would have wrapped it up.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, maybe do a review next pod.
Yeah.
With a coffee that's hopefully not too cold.
Yeah.
I'll be that stupid. They'll be like, "Oh, do you want some milk in the coffee?" And I'll say, "Yeah, please." So we've only got like 1 minute before it gets cold. Dear me.
Well, that's why I didn't think of that.
It's been a pleasure, Bookends. We'll see you next week.
Bye.